What is up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm answering all of your questions about our most recent January Disney trip. I'm so excited to chat with you. I love these sit down Q&A videos, so I always get excited when I get to do one of these. But I asked you guys over on Instagram if y'all had any questions for me about our trip, and you guys delivered. There were over 100 questions. I don't think I'll be able to get to all of them in this one video, but I'm gonna get through as many as I possibly can. So let's go ahead and get started. First question, how to do late arrivals to the parks? Do you stack Genie Plus? What time do you arrive? This has really evolved over time. Early on in the baby years, the way I structured our park days looked very different than how I do it today. So I'm just gonna share how we do it today, but keep in mind, this isn't how our days always looked, and you really have to adjust it based on what style trip it is. If it's an adult only trip, if you have a baby, if you have a toddler, if you have a preschooler, or your kids are older, it's gonna look different for everybody. So for right now, with my 4-year-old daughter, I try to get out the door by 8 a.m. That's usually my goal, and we're not like rope drop kind of people. We just don't do early mornings well. I like to let my daughter sleep in, and sleeping in for her is 7 a.m. That is like a good night's sleep. She's up around 6:30, 7 a.m. when we're at Disney, and then to be out the door by 8 a.m. is pretty good for us. So that's usually my goal, and most days I don't do Genie Plus. Now, if there is a day that I'm doing Genie Plus, I'm ready to go at 7 a.m. to book my first lightning lane, and then obviously, that's kind of it until you use that first lightning lane, usually around 9 a.m., 9:30. But before that, it's not really possible to stack lightning lanes early in the morning, unless you're purchasing an individual lightning lane, then you could stack them in that sense. But, first thing in the morning, there's not a whole lot you can do other than make that first lightning lane. So that's pretty much what our mornings look like. If there's a morning that we don't do Genie Plus and I'm in no rush to get out the door, then sometimes we'll get to the parks around 9 or 9:30, and that's kind of a later morning for us, really taking our time getting out the door. So it really just depends, but we are definitely not early morning rope drop people. Is it hard to get on a bus post Magic Kingdom fireworks? It really depends. I mean, you could walk right up right after the fireworks, a bus is pulling up, and you could hop right on. Now, it is gonna be very crowded at the end of the night, obviously, or you could walk right up as a bus is leaving and join the line and wait, 15, 20 minutes for the next bus to come is usually gonna be the scenario. Now, when we stayed at Caribbean Beach, we actually got to the very front of the line and people were like, just sardined onto the bus. And with a stroller, I was like, I'm gonna wait for the next one. That I'm not gonna attempt to squeeze onto that bus. So I voluntarily stepped back and waited for the next bus, and we waited all of 10 minutes and another bus came and we got a seat. Now, that was another bus that was very full, but I'm glad I waited for the next bus. Usually buses are coming a lot at the end of the night. They know that everyone is leaving and going back to the resort after the fireworks. So there's a lot of buses. I wouldn't say you'll wait longer than 15 minutes. Caribbean Beach Resort perks and tips. I actually have a full review on this resort. I will have that video linked down below if you want to check it out. It's more of like a pros and cons kind of video, but I really break down all of the amenities of this resort, everything that it has to offer, and the pros and cons. It'll help you kind of decide if this is a good fit for your family. Personally, I love Caribbean Beach. I think it has a lot going for it with the location and the transportation perks. You're really close to Riviera, which is so nice to have all of those dining options right at your fingertips as well. So there's a lot going on at Caribbean Beach, and I think it has a lot going for it. So if you want to dive in a little bit deeper, I'll have that pros and cons video linked down below for you. Did you request the under the sea room at Caribbean Beach or just get lucky? So this was a room that we had requested. So for this trip, I was working with Simple Magic Travel Company, and my travel agent with Simple Magic called several times requesting this room and requesting specifically building 34. And then right when I got to the resort. I also made another note, hey, my travel agent had been requesting this room. If it's possible, I would love to get in this section. And they put me in that section and in the building that we had requested as well. So it definitely took a lot of requests. Now, those requests are never 100% like guaranteed, but it does help calling multiple times, like 60 days out, 30 days out, a week out, and then even day of or day before, call multiple times. That way the room assigner knows exactly what to prioritize for your reservation. So it was not just luck, we did request that Trinidad section. Pros and cons of an annual pass. Well, the con obviously is that it is so expensive. And if you live out of state like me, your only option is the Incredipass, which you have to pay in full upfront. So there's no monthly payment option. So you just kind of have to take the hit of the annual pass all upfront, which can really deter people from becoming pass holders because that's really a lot of money to pay up front. So that would be the biggest con, I would say. The pro, of course, is that you don't have to worry about tickets with your Disney vacation. It's already paid for, or you're making monthly payments on it, which is really nice. And you automatically get the park hopper. So it's really nice to be able to on your travel day, decide, oh, let's pop into Magic Kingdom for the night and go watch the fireworks. And then you don't feel like you're wasting a full day ticket just to go watch the fireworks for an hour and then go back to your resort. So that's really incredible. Or same thing on your checkout day. If you want to pop into Epcot and just do one ride and then you have to leave and your transportation is coming to pick you up to take you to the airport. Like, that's really nice. Again, you didn't waste a full day ticket. And then of course you get 20% off merch, you get 10% off some of the dining. So there's a few different little discount perks here and there, but obviously the biggest perk is that going to Disney, you don't have to worry about your tickets. There were actually a few questions back to back to back about itinerary. So wanting tips or recommendations for an itinerary for a toddler or a preschooler. So I actually have on my website a free sample Magic Kingdom itinerary that you can download, and you can kind of read through exactly how I would structure a Magic Kingdom day with a toddler or a preschooler. So I will have that linked down below. All you have to do is enter your email and then you get that sample itinerary delivered directly to you to download. So I will have that link down below for you. Next question, did you feel lonely going solo to Disney? Now, I'm assuming like solo mom when I'm there just with Ellie. Honestly, I never feel lonely because Ellie is finally at an age, I mean, she's been this for a little while. Like I would say 3 years old was kind of the turning point where our conversations just looked a little bit different at that age. And now, especially at 4 years old, she is just hilarious. So I feel like I'm either constantly laughing at something she's saying, interacting with her and having conversations with her, or I'm telling her, don't climb on that, get down from there, come back here, don't do this, don't do that. So I'm always talking. So I think because of that, I never feel lonely. And then of course there's lots of interactions with cast members, and this trip specifically, I made a lot of friends. I don't know how that happened, but I would either sit down and, let Ellie play at the beach at Polynesian or at the pool at Beach Club. And I always sat down and made a friend with another mom, and we would end up talking for like 2-3 hours. So I ended up making a lot of friends on this trip, which was really different. So I think between that and the dynamics with my daughter, I never felt lonely. What is the hardest thing about taking a toddler to Disney? I think the hardest thing is when you have a plan or an expectation set in your mind, something that you either thought would be a lot of fun, maybe it was like a character dining reservation, or your toddler had been talking about meeting Mickey and Minnie for, months, and you prioritized meeting Mickey and Minnie. Like that is the number one thing. You structured your entire day around meeting Mickey and Minnie. And then whatever that thing is ends up completely falling apart. And the character meal is just a disaster, or they end up being terrified of Minnie and Mickey, and the morning can seem like it's crumbling or whatever. That's probably the hardest part, is having to readjust your expectations and be okay with letting go of the magical moment or experience or whatever you had built up in your mind. That is probably the hardest part. It takes a lot of grace and patience to be okay with stepping away from that really expensive dining reservation or the character meet and greet that you just waited an hour for or whatever, and saying, okay, totally fine. We are just going to shift and we're going to go back to the room because we definitely need to get out of this overstimulating environment. Or, okay, we're not going to do this dining reservation. We're going to go, grab Casey's corner and eat corn dogs on the hut grass. Like totally shifting what your plans and expectations were and doing something different is probably the hardest part. And that can be challenging, when you have been planning this incredible Disney vacation for months and months, or, over a year, and you have put so much time into it. There is so much that's unpredictable when you bring a toddler. So that is the hardest part, in my opinion. And you kind of have to go into your trip planning for the unexpected things to happen, which is really hard. So anyway, that is the hardest thing about taking a toddler. How do you share a hotel room with a 2-year-old? This takes a lot of practice. Now, when Ellie was 2, she was actually still in a pack and play. So what I would do is I would put the pack and play in the bathroom, and I made sure to only choose Disney Resort rooms that had like a full sliding door to it in the bathroom. And now she wasn't in the area where like the toilet and all of that was. She was in like the separate part of the bathroom, that like the larger part where the sinks were. And then I would leave a little pathway. And this is the kind of stuff no one ever told me, like pre-Disney travel with babies and toddlers. I was like, how do parents do this? So I hope this is helpful. But basically, I would leave a little pathway where after she was asleep, I could squeeze through, and then I could shut the second sliding door. If you're kind of with me envisioning this, I would shut the other sliding door to the toilet and the shower, and I could take a shower because we had a sound machine going, and the shower also kind of like, it meshes with the sound machine. So she stayed asleep the entire time, and I was able to take a shower. I can use the restroom, whatever I need, and then I flip the light off, and then I open the door, and I'm able to sneak by her and get back out to the main bedroom area, and I can shut that door again. So that is how I made it work when Ellie was in a pack and play. And you really just have to figure out what works best for you. Is it the pack and play in the bathroom? Is it a blow up mattress with a slumber pod? Is it the pull down fit sleeper bed? And it may take some trial and error to figure out what works best for you and your child. Maybe you try something one night. Okay, well that didn't go great, so let's try something different tonight, and you kind of adjust on night 2 or day 2 for nap time. So you just have to find what works for you. Sadly, there's no magic secret to sharing a room with a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old. You just kind of make it work. Was it difficult to switch resorts with a child? A lot of packing and unpacking. Yes, it was. I honestly wouldn't do just one night at a resort again. I think 2 nights is the minimum. Personally, I loved having 3 nights at Caribbean Beach, and you really feel like you can at least somewhat settle into the room. And then we did 1 night at Polynesian, and of course, switching to Polynesian was exciting because we had been at Caribbean Beach for 3 nights. So switching at that point didn't feel like a big deal, and unpacking felt very exciting. And I left everything in the suitcase. I didn't really unpack ever. I just kind of laid everything out, and everything was in packing cubes. So I was able to keep it really organized and then only pull out the things that we needed. So then when we checked out the next morning of Polynesian, I just threw in, the blanket, the sound machine, our little toiletry bags, and then zipped up the suitcase, and that was it. It probably took me 20 minutes to get everything packed up. So it really didn't feel like a big deal, but I didn't really unpack either, which is nice. You want to settle in and you want to unpack. So that was the one thing that we didn't get. In our 1 night at Polynesian, I never really truly settled into the room. Then we packed it up and then moved to the beach club. And then we were able to kind of, again, somewhat unpack. But again, I knew we were just gonna be there for another short amount of time. So I left everything in the suitcase, and it was great. I loved getting to experience multiple resorts. And that was kind of the goal for this trip, that we would get to experience a lot. Would I do that on every single trip? Do 3 resort switches? Probably not. I think one resort switch is my max, and doing like 2 resorts, 1 switch, as compared to 3 resorts with 2 switches, but it's absolutely doable. So if you're thinking about doing a split stay, especially if it's just the 1 switch, maybe you're doing like 3 nights and then 2 nights, or whatever the combination is, it's totally doable. I think it's so worth it to pack everything up, and you can get as much as you can packed up the night before, and then that way that next morning it doesn't feel like a scramble and everything is just still a mess. You've done most of the packing up the night before, and then you can wake up and just kind of put the last minute things in your bag, and it doesn't feel as much of a big deal doing it that way. And especially if you transfer your own bags. I shared this in a tip on my Instagram account the other day, but if you transfer your own bags, then you have everything at your next resort waiting for you if you get an early check-in. Typically, when Disney transfers your luggage for you to your next resort, you're not gonna see your luggage until 5-6 p.m., which doesn't really work if you have a napping child and you've got, all of your nap time essentials in your suitcase. So having access to that and just transferring your own bags and taking an Uber, take a minivan, whatever the case is, and that way you have everything and Bell Services can store it for you. But let's say you get an early check-in at 10 a.m., you can call Bell Services and they'll bring your luggage up at 10 a.m. and you already have it there. You're not waiting until that evening to get all of your things. That is one tip for a split stay, is to transfer your own luggage, and it makes that transition day feel a little bit easier. Things you bring to occupy Ellie in the hotel. I bring quite a bit for her, mostly because I know that I'm gonna be filming content when we're in the room or at the resort, so I like to have activities on hand. So I always have movies downloaded on her tablet. That's kind of my foolproof thing that I can give her, is just give her headphones, put a movie on, we're good. I bring a lot of coloring activities, so she loves those mess-free coloring books, her LED coloring tablet. She also really enjoyed Play-Doh on this trip. So I would just put out a few different colors of Play-Doh on the little table and chairs, and she was really into it, and that kept her entertained for a while I could film a room tour. I also had my secret Dollar Tree toy bag, which she loved, because she'd be like, we'd get to the room and she'd go, "Mommy, can I pull out the bag? Can I get the toy bag out?" And it was really exciting. And so I would open the bag and I would let her pick out one thing. So it was like this special little treasure box, and she could pick out one thing out of this little bag, and they were just little Dollar Tree trinket random toys, but she loved it. So it was I'm not even kidding, it was like a treasure box, and that is the first thing she reached for whenever we got to the room, was this little bag. So coloring activities, movies, Play-Doh, and a little treasure box bag. Okay, here's a stroller question. For the Contours Bitsy Elite stroller, do you gate check or store in the carry-on overhead bin? I always gate check, mostly because we do carry-on bags, so it's just one less thing to have to maneuver onto the plane. It does fit in the overhead bin, so if you wanted to bring it with you, it can totally fit. I just prefer to gate check it, and just getting on and off the plane as a solo mom with a backpack, my little crossbody bag, and usually I have a carry-on suitcase, my weekender bag, and my child. So trying to maneuver a stroller, in the overhead bin, pulling all of that down and holding her hand, it's one less thing to worry about. So that is why I gate check it, but it absolutely can fit in the overhead bin. What do you think is the right amount of days for a trip with a toddler? Okay, every family is so different. Every toddler is so different. So that's what makes this question kind of difficult. I know for us, obviously I can only speak from our experience. 5 days, I have learned, is kind of our max. 4 nights, 5 days, maybe 5 nights is the sweet spot. So 4 to 5 days, or 4 to 5 nights is the sweet spot. 5 days is the max. I've noticed by day 5, that is when Ellie, her behavior kind of starts to shift a little bit, and she gets a little more whiny. Things tend to trigger her a little bit easier. Things tend to trigger me a little bit easier come day 5. And that's usually the point when I'm ready to go home. Like, I feel like I'm ready. On this past trip, when our flight got canceled and we had to stay an extra day, so we were there now 6 nights, 7 full days. By day 7, I was done. I think her and I both we were just over it. That really confirmed for me that 5-6 days is really my max, and it's also my preschooler's max. So that is what I would say for like the ideal time. Again, there are other families who can go 10 days and their toddlers do great and have a fantastic time. Other families keep it shorter and do 3 to 4 days. So you really just have to find what works best for your family. Okay, this one is funny. Any tips for using the restroom with a little one along? Mine touch everything. Mine does too. Sadly, that's just kind of part of it. I have learned as many times as I tell Ellie, do not touch anything. Don't touch the toilet. Don't touch this. Don't touch that. I mean, it's like, I don't know, she just touches everything. So I've learned, you know what, it's gonna happen. So I wash her hands really, really good when we're done. And on top of that, then I will spray hand sanitizer all over her hands, all up her arms. Like, I try to get it like double when we're done in the restroom. I guess that's my tip for going to the bathroom with toddlers and preschoolers who just touch everything, is wash hands and then double up with hand sanitizer. Is what we do. Do you rent a car when you fly? Why or why not? When it was just Andy and I, we actually would rent a car, and we really loved having the flexibility to just drive ourselves around, and it was really easy. Now, as a solo mom traveling with my preschooler, I find it to be a lot easier to just use Disney transportation and not worry about it. I feel like it's been a while since we've rented a car when we have flown down, especially with private transportation being, you know, so popular now, and that being offered. You know, it's just so easy. And, you know, we do the private transportation and then we do Disney transportation once we get to our resort. And that's just what works well for us. So yeah, it's been a while since we have rented a car. Best area to stay off property. I love the Bonnet Creek area. So there's the Club Wyndham Bonnet Creek, which is like the timeshare rental. We usually do like Airbnb or VRBO. You can rent like a 1, 2, or 3 bedroom condo at Club Wyndham, and those are pretty nice. I wouldn't say it's like 5-star, but you can usually get a 2-bedroom condo or 2-bedroom villa for like $150, $200 a night, which is, you know, I mean, you just can't find that at Disney. There's also the JW Marriott near Bonnet Creek. There's the Wyndham, the Grand Wyndham in Bonnet Creek. So there's some really nice hotels back there. And it's a really great location because you're right across the street from Old Key West. So it's kind of that Disney Springs area. So you do have to go on Disney property to get to the Bonnet Creek area. And then when you turn down Bonnet Creek, then it's not Disney property anymore, if that makes sense, but you do have to go on property to get to this off-property area. So that's really why I like it, because you feel like you're on Disney property, and you can usually find some pretty good deals depending on what you're looking for. If you're looking for the condo or the 5-star hotel, you know, there's a few different options back there. So that would be my favorite off-property area to stay. Tips on resetting if the day starts going poorly. I actually love this question because this has been us many, many times. So resetting the day for us usually looks like a break back in the room. Is just leave the park. That is usually the solution for us, is just get out of the park. We've got to go back to the room and reset. So nap time is usually my go-to for resetting the day if things start going downhill, and maybe that does mean calling it early and missing a lightning lane or canceling a dining reservation. And, you know, like, sadly that has to happen sometimes if you truly need a good reset. Another thing is to go to a playground. Like, you know, maybe you haven't reached the, like, we got to get out of here point yet. Maybe you just need to go to a playground. There are so many great locations at Magic Kingdom. You have, back in Storybook Circus, the playground in the Dumbo queue. At Epcot, there is 2 different playgrounds, actually like 3 or 4 different playgrounds at Epcot. There's a play area right outside the Figment attraction. There's Inside Seas with Nemo and Friends. You have the outdoor playground near Connections Cafe. You have the indoor playground through the exit of Mission Space. Hollywood, there's really no great playground there. You could do the Disney Junior Dance Party. That's a great reset. And then I'm trying to like fly through these. And then at Animal Kingdom, you have the Boneyard Playground, which is ginormous and just incredible. You can also do Rafiki's Planet Watch and take the train back to the petting zoo. That's a really great area if your child needs to just reset and, you know, Animal Kingdom is way too crowded and it's overstimulating, like go to the petting zoo. So those are kind of my go-to things if, again, we haven't reached the point of we got to get out of here and we just need to do something that gets her out of the stroller, you know, and gets us out of the hard moment, whatever that is. And then the last thing I would say is don't underestimate the power of a cookie, an ice cream bar, like cotton candy. Like a lot of times those really special treats can be a really great reset. So those would be my top 3 things for resetting the day. But most of the time it looks like getting out of the park and going back to the room. Best fireworks spot in Epcot. I actually got this question a few times. So my all-time favorite spot to watch fireworks in Epcot is on the bridge that connects the Canada Pavilion to the France Pavilion. So you're near the International Gateway. And this is a great spot, especially if you are in one of the Epcot resorts or if you need to get to the Skyliner. So as soon as the fireworks are done, or sometimes we'll even leave a few minutes early and just kind of like watch the fireworks as we're walking away to go get in line for the Skyliner, and you beat the crowds, but it's a really fantastic view. I would say if you don't want people like directly in front of you on the bridge, I would get there 30 minutes before the fireworks start. So that way you can be like right on the railing of the bridge, but that is usually my go-to spot. Which resort was the best on this trip? So we stayed at Caribbean Beach, Polynesian, and the Beach Club. And by far, Beach Club was my favorite. I am actually shocked that I'm saying that. I thought for sure that Polynesian would be my favorite, but Beach Club was hands down my favorite. I love the relaxing, low-key atmosphere there. That's my vibe. Like that is what I love about a Disney resort, is anything that's like low-key and relaxing and doesn't feel like, you know, crowded and crazy, and, you know, which is kind of how Polynesian felt, to be honest. And, you know, again, I have a lot to share about Polynesian, but I loved Beach Club. I loved that everything was so centrally located and it was so close to Epcot. I mean, you are a 7-minute walk to get into Epcot, which is just incredible, and I loved it. I loved everything about Beach Club, so that was definitely my favorite. Solo mom tips. I actually have a full video sharing all of my tips for traveling solo with your child. So I'll have that video linked down below as well. And I go into, you know, everything. Like I really break it down in that video. But if I could say one thing about, you know, going on your own with your little one, if you're considering it, you know, of course, my number one thing is do it, just go for it. Before I attempted this kind of trip with Ellie, I was so anxious. I thought for sure, you know, how can you do this alone? Like a full week or, you know, 4 days. How do you do that by yourself, traveling and navigating an airport and, you know, getting in and out of your resort and the parks? Like, it just seems so overwhelming. But then I did it and I was like, wow, I feel like super mom. Like I can totally do this. But my number one tip would be is pack your patience and then double it. And I think I said this exact thing about going as a solo mom, is pack your patience and double it, because typically when you have your husband or your parents or a friend or, you know, whoever traveling with you, you can kind of tag team all of the things. So if you need to use the restroom, you know, it's just, okay, I'm going to run real quick. You wait here with the kids. Or, oh, I forgot this one thing back in the room. Let me run back up and get it. And, you know, whoever can be with the kids. And when it's just you don't get a break. Like every little thing you are doing with your child. So going to the restroom, oh, you forgot something. Okay, well, we got to go all the way back. Oh, we just sat down for lunch and you have to go potty. okay, well, we got to figure out what to do with our food now. It takes a lot of extra patience in moments like that. And I thought that I was patient. Like I thought, oh yeah, I've got this. And then those things started to happen and I was like, ooh, wow, okay. I don't get a break. Like I am momming all the time, unless there's like an hour in the middle of the day where Ellie is sleeping during nap time and I can kind of like turn it off. But other than that, you are on every moment of every day while you're at Disney. It's so fun. You just have to have a lot of extra patience because you don't have the second set of hands to take over in moments where you might feel overwhelmed. So that would be my number one tip, is go into the trip knowing I'm gonna need a lot of patience for this. The memories are gonna be worth it. We are going to have a blast, but I'm gonna need a lot of patience. Tips for how to handle temper tantrums at the parks. I tried to say that a first time and it was like a tongue twister, so that was take 2. So my number one tip for temper tantrums in the park, to avoid them, let's start there. To avoid those moments, my tip would be give options and give choices. So I think for a lot of little kids, Disney feels very overwhelming. Like it's a lot to take in. I mean, even as an adult, it's a lot to take in. There's a lot going on. And toddlers like to feel like they are in control. They like to feel like they have a say in some of their choices. And so I think a lot of times when they feel like those choices are stripped away from them, or they don't know what's going on, they don't know what's coming next or what to expect, it just gets very overwhelming. And so I feel like that kind of leads into those temper tantrums. So what I do to prevent from getting to that place is I really try to talk to Ellie and walk her through our day. So as soon as we get up in the morning, okay, now we're gonna eat breakfast. Okay, in 5 minutes, we're gonna get our shoes on, we're gonna walk out the door and we're going to Epcot today. At Epcot, we're gonna see this character, we're gonna go on this ride, and I kind of give her a rundown. And then we walk out the door. Okay, we're going to Epcot now, like I told you a little bit ago. Okay, we're at Epcot, we're gonna first go see this person. And so I'm really like, I am talking to her all day long. Every moment of the day, I am explaining everything that we're doing. And at this point, she knows pretty well like what things are and where we're going and what to expect. But early on when she didn't, this was very important for her. Like she needed to know what to expect. Then I started giving her a couple of options. So, if the choice was, do you want to go to the playground outside, or we can go to the Seas with Nemo and Friends play area? Obviously it's playtime and I've made the choice as the parent that we're going to go to a playground, but she gets to make the call on which playground to go to. So she now feels like she has a little bit of control over our day. And I found that letting her make those decisions when we're at Disney, whether it's what you're going to eat off the kids' meal or what she's not going to eat off the kids' meal, which playground we're going to go to, which character do you want to meet next? We have Pluto or we have Goofy over here. Both have a similar line. Which one do you want to do? And those are the kind of choices that are toddler appropriate, I think. And so I feel like letting her make those choices, explaining things to her, like really taking the time to explain our day and letting her know what to expect, it really helps her not get to that point where she feels completely out of control and the tantrum is the only thing left for her to do. So it's been a long time since she has had any kind of tantrum in the park, I think because she feels like she's a part of what we're doing and she gets to make the call, she gets to make some of the choices, and she knows what's going on. It feels less overwhelming because she knows what to expect. And anyway, so that's what I would say to prevent the tantrum. Now, if you are already in the tantrum, a lot of times it looks like we just got to get out of here. We're going to put you in the stroller. We are strapping you in the stroller and we are out of here. And just whatever it takes, get out of the overstimulating environment wherever the tantrum is happening. And we either leave the park or we try to find some, corner that, seems like pretty quiet or there's not a lot of people, and, and we can kind of like regroup and calm down in that kind of setting. But I found that if the tantrum is happening, on the middle of the sidewalk, like it's going to be really difficult to get things resolved in that atmosphere. It really is going to take, okay, let's step aside. Like, we need to find some little back corner or, you know, some little quiet area where we can go and like really work through this together. So that's what I would say. I know, again, and this question looks so different for every child. That's the hard thing. Like, every child is so different and how they respond and all of that. But that is my experience from taking a toddler from, well, really, Ellie's first trip was 10 months old. 14 months old was her first true like toddler trip, and then over a dozen trips up until now at 4 years old. So that is what I have learned from taking my child to Disney now 12 times, 13 times, I think 12. How did this trip differ from your past ones with just Ellie? Obviously, she's much older, so 4 years old. She is talking way more. What she can understand is a little bit more advanced. Her level of conversation is higher. So things like that, just she's 4 years old. And so, you know, obviously it's going to look a little bit different than it did a year ago at 3. I would say at 4, it is so much easier than it was at 3. I can reason with her a little bit more. Now she does have a little bit more of an attitude now. You know, we're working on the obedience thing and, you know, all of those things that you face at this age. So that is definitely different. But I would say overall, it feels much easier at this age as compared to even a year ago, just because she is communicating so much better. I can reason with her more, and she's just hilarious and so much fun. So I would say we're having more fun on these trips recently. She's able to do more, like all of that. So it's a lot of fun. Best safety tips for traveling to and from MCO safely solo and within Disney. Safety is definitely something I'm very aware of. So I really try to delay in like sharing or posting where we are or what we're doing until several hours after we have done it. So that is one thing that I do. I never announce like, you know, hey world, we're sitting at such and such location right now in this moment, you know. So that's one thing that I feel like I have a lot of control over. Getting to and from MCO, personally, I think Mears is a great option, especially because, you know, you're on a bus with a lot of people, and, you know, the more people that you're around and traveling with, there's safety in numbers. Obviously, always be aware of your surroundings. I love doing private transportation. I feel very safe and secure going that route, mostly because I know my driver really well at this point. So when I see him at the airport, I automatically like, oh, okay, it's Jim, you know, or it's Manny. Like, I know my driver. So that's really comforting. And then, you know, when you're on Disney property, overall, I feel very safe. Now, I always make sure I've got the deadbolt on the door. I've got that extra lock always on the door, no matter what. You know, I'm not answering the door for anybody, really, unless it's clearly like a housekeeping person. But other than that, I feel very safe on Disney property. There are a couple of resorts that I have actually chosen not to stay at. Port Orleans Riverside is one that I have avoided in the past because of the dark pathways and feeling like I'm in the woods, you know, and traveling and being alone, pushing a stroller if we're getting back late at night, you know, past 10 p.m. And, you know, I feel like I'm walking through the woods. Now I realize it is a Disney resort, it's well lit, all of the things. There's gonna be other people going back to their rooms as well. But just personally, it's a resort that I feel like I've made a decision that traveling solo, this isn't going to be a good fit for me and my comfort level because of all the hidden corners and all of the trees and the woods. So that is kind of an example of one scenario where, you know, I'm very aware. But again, that is just me personally. I really try to go into each trip feeling aware, but not living out of fear. So I think finding the balance of those two things is kind of key. So far, I've really felt comfortable traveling to Disney solo with my daughter, and I think especially when it's a location that you frequent and you're there a lot, you know, you definitely build the confidence and you feel comfortable. Obviously, that doesn't get rid of any risk traveling anywhere on your own, but I really try to be aware again and not live out of fear. but be aware of my surroundings. Do you still use your Contours stroller, or did Ellie outgrow it? This is still the stroller I use with her. She does have to pick her feet up off the ground. I mean, she's, again, very tall for her age. I feel like I talk about that a lot. So she is a tall 4-year-old, but she definitely still fits in the stroller. I would say you could really make this stroller work. 5, 6, 7 might be a little bit too big, but I would say 5, 6 years old, you could probably still make this stroller work. So I'm gonna use this stroller for as long as Ellie is comfortable in it. It is just such a great compact stroller. I'll have it linked below. This is my ride or die stroller. I love that you push a button, it like folds itself up, push another button, one-handed, pops itself back up. I mean, it is so easy. And then it folds down into nothing, basically. I mean, it's so lightweight, it's so easy to get on and off the buses with her. With this stroller, I can usually just put it like between my legs. If I'm like sitting on the bus, I can like put it right here and it's not in anybody's way. Like, it is just, it's such a good Disney stroller. What were the things you liked about the Polynesian and things you didn't care for? The things I did love. I love the beach area, the music, the vibe, like everything about it. When you walk in and the smell and the lobby, like, it's just like, okay, you're on vacation. And I loved the rooms. We were in a DVC studio, but whether or not you're in a studio or just one of their hotel rooms, like the rooms are beautiful. I love the rooms. The studio was so large. Oh my word. It was huge. It was like our Caribbean beach room just doubled, and you have the 2 bathrooms. Like, I wish that had been the room that we could have stayed in our entire time. It was such a good room. We just had a standard view, but even the standard view was like, you got palm trees and, just even another building at the Polynesian in the background. Like, it was so nice. And of course the food. Oh my gosh, the food. We ate at Captain Cook's for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It was so good. And then of course you have Kona, Ohana, you have the Tambu Lounge, you have Trader Sam's. Like, their food is so good. But a couple of things I did not care for. We came back from Magic Kingdom around 7 o'clock, got off the monorail, and it was shoulder to shoulder. I felt like I was at a tourist attraction at the Polynesian all of a sudden. It went from this really relaxing hotel atmosphere to this like night scene almost. So that felt very shocking to go from like, oh, whoa, this is totally different than what I experienced this morning. And then, trying to get downstairs was a hassle with just so many people, and you have that, one little elevator section. At one point, I just carried the stroller down the stairs because I was over waiting for the elevator. There were so many people. So I carried the stroller downstairs. Like, I didn't even fold it up. I was like, I'm just carrying this down the stairs. I could have folded it up, but like all our stuff was in the basket and, I just carried it. So we get downstairs and we go get in line, get some food at Captain Cook's, and I walk outside because all the tables were full. There was nowhere to sit, which was fine. It was 7 o'clock, like dinner hour. So I thought, we'll just go find a spot outside. And outside was just packed. I mean, there were so many people there. And when you go outside of Trader Sam's, there's like an outdoor bar lounge area, and that had turned into like a party scene almost. There were so many adults in that area, a lot of intoxicated adults having a really great time, using up a lot of the tables that were meant for families with their food with Captain Cook's. So that was difficult. So we just kind of waited for a table to open up, and we got one, but I don't know, it wasn't quite the atmosphere I was looking for. I wasn't really there to join like a party, like I was there with my daughter, and there was a movie going, but people were just so loud with their drinks, and it was just a lot. Again, that just wasn't the atmosphere that I thought I was gonna get at the Polynesian. And then of course, a few minutes before the fireworks started, we walked down there and the beach is just packed. I mean, there is nowhere to stand. Even in the back of the sidewalk, there was barely room to walk by. So we walked way down onto the edge of the beach, and there was a ton of open space down there, and that was fine. But I think there were so many people that before the fireworks were even done, Ellie looked at me and she was like, Mommy, like, can we just go? Like, I don't like this. It's too loud, too many people. So I was like, of course, like, we can just go. She was like, I just want to go to bed. So at like 8:15, Ellie's asking to go to bed because she's like, I don't like this. So we go back to the room and, anyway, I share this whole thing in a vlog, but, obviously, it's not a huge deal, but I think it's definitely something to keep in mind about the nightlife at Polynesian, because they do have lounges and bars and, it's a little bit more of like a party scene there, which no one has ever really talked about. I didn't go into it expecting that. So I think it's a beautiful resort. The rooms are gorgeous. The food is just amazing, but at night specifically, be prepared that it's going to get a little rowdy with all of the bars and the alcohol and, there's so many people being filtered through this resort that I don't even know if half of them were staying at the hotel. I mean, it felt like the Polynesian became a tourist attraction. And then that morning we woke up, totally different experience. It was like, wow, all the people were gone. It was empty again. It was quiet. It was, I was like, oh, okay, this is what I love about the Polynesian. But if you're going to spend the evening there and get dinner and do the fireworks and all of that, like, it just wasn't what I thought it was going to be. So anyway, those are my thoughts on the Polynesian. I definitely want to go into a little more depth and share some videos and, all the things, but that's my quick little pros and cons of our experience. Do you prefer split stays, or was it just based on availability? I love split stays and I purposefully piece them together. I could absolutely stay all 5 nights or 4 nights or whatever at one hotel, but I love doing split stays. I like being able to check off like, okay, we've now stayed at the beach club, we've now stayed at Polynesian, and I like being able to experience more resorts, and I love getting content for the resorts. I'm not even gonna pretend that it's anything other than that. Like, I love that I can share our experience about the resorts, and then when I have someone ask me, hey, what are your thoughts on the Polynesian? What are your thoughts on the beach club? I have a really recent stay and experience that I can share with you, that I have stayed there, and I can give a firsthand experience and a review, and and I have pictures and videos to be able to share about it. So there's also that piece of it as well. As a content creator, I love doing split stays for that reason. Now, if I wasn't on YouTube and no one was asking, hey, what do you think about the beach club? Like, I don't know if I would have stayed there. We probably would have just stayed the whole time at Caribbean Beach, or maybe we would have just booked the whole time at Beach Club or Polynesian. But, again, because I'm on YouTube, our trips look very different than if I wasn't sharing these trips with anybody, if that makes sense at all. But I do love split stays. Okay, there were a lot of questions about the weather, about what I packed, if my outfits worked out. So yes, all of the outfits that I packed worked great. I packed lots of layers, and I also packed tank tops and shorts. Everything got utilized. I wore everything that I packed, minus my athletic dress. I wore everything. So if you're curious about my outfits and what I packed in the weather, go check out my packing video. I do like a winter outfit try on, so you can see some of the outfits that I packed. I have a bunch of stuff linked in that video, so I will have that down in the description box. How do you handle carrying a stroller and a child on a full bus or monorail alone? This is definitely something that I was anxious about prior to traveling as a solo mom with my daughter. But I think the first thing is having a really great compact stroller. Like, if you're gonna be on your own, make sure it's a stroller that you can fold up and collapse and carry easily on your own, and that it's not some like giant bulky thing with 3 different pieces and parts to it. Like, you wanna be as hands-free as possible. So what I do is I put my backpack on, I have my little mommy sling bag, and then I have my compact stroller in one hand, and I'm holding Ellie's hand in the other hand. That is how we make it work. So I try to be as hands-free as possible, but the key is having a stroller that you can manage really easily on your own, and especially one-handed. Okay, I'm gonna have this be the last question. Packing for January, things that you wish you had or you're glad that you did have. So things that I'm really thankful I had is gloves and hand warmers. That was one thing I never in a million years thought I would be packing for Disney World, but they got used and it was freezing a couple of our nights, and I'm so thankful. I would just put them in our pockets. I put a couple in Ellie's pocket, and I told her that she could just put her hands in and, like, you know, hold on to them if she needed to. So very thankful we had that. Very thankful that I had shorts and short sleeve t-shirts because it really warmed up on our last day and on one of the afternoons that we were there as well. And I changed into shorts. So very thankful. One thing that I did not pack that I wish I had now is a swimsuit for Ellie. I intentionally left our swimsuits behind because I thought, you know, hey, even if it is in the 60s or, you know, does warm up to the high 60s, I still don't think it's going to be warm enough to do the pool. But then on our very last day, sure enough, it was high 70s and it was plenty warm to get in the pool. So I ended up buying Ellie a swimsuit in the gift shop. And it's a super cute swimsuit. So I wasn't complaining, but you know, I definitely could have brought our swimsuit from home and saved the money. That is one thing I wish I had packed is our swimsuits. I didn't have flip-flops or, you know, anything like that. So anytime she was like, I've got to go potty, I was like, oh, okay, we got to dry off your feet and put your tennis, like socks and tennis shoes back on, go to the bathroom, you know, it's the minor inconvenience, but I wish I had just packed all the swimsuit stuff. So, you know, that would be another tip is if you're going, you know, in the winter time and it says, oh, 60s, 50s, like we're going to leave all of our swim gear at home, just pack it anyway. Like if you have the space, better to have it and not need it than all of a sudden it's warmed up and your kids want to go to the pool, but you're like, oh, well, I didn't pack it. So just bring the swimsuit or you'll be like me in the gift shop purchasing a swimsuit. So that's one thing that I definitely wish I'd brought. All right, I'm gonna end it here. Thank you so much for watching. I don't even know how long this has gone on at this point, but if you are still watching, thank you so much. Oh my goodness, it's seriously because of you that I am able to keep doing what I'm doing because you watch my entire video. That is just incredible and blows my mind. So thank you so much. So I would love for you to stick around and subscribe. If you are someone who has stuck around until the very end, just go ahead and subscribe. I mean, why not? Let's be internet besties. So thank you again. And I would love for you to give this video a thumbs up. It really does help support my channel. That is it for today, and I will see you in my next one. Bye guys.